Hello and welcome to New Wave Global. You are watching Unraveled with Marvi Sirmed. I'm your host, Marvi. New Wave Global has been reporting the alarming situation that unfolded in the United Kingdom over the last few weeks. A series of riots erupted after the alt right influencers started spreading false information about the heinous murder of three young girls. The killer, they alleged, was a Muslim immigrant, and there started a spate of hate crimes against the immigrants with racial undertones. The situation escalated very quickly and engulfed almost the entire UK, with riots and counter protest demonstrations. Many analysts now believe all of this to be the response to deep seated frustrations over racial injustice, economic inequality, much more, and also police brutality. To provide us with deeper insights into these developments, we are joined by Dr. Arif Azad, a distinguished scholar and columnist known for his incisive analyses of political and international affairs. Dr. Azad brings a wealth of experience, having worked on Jeremy Corbyn's election campaign and his recent independent run from North Islington. He is also a committed advocate for civil rights and has been actively involved in addressing racial discrimination issues in the UK and beyond. Dr. Azad, it's a pleasure to have you on our show.
Yes, thanks for having me, Marvi. It is, great pleasure to be talking to you about an issue about which I feel very strongly about. You asked me about, providing context to what happened in the South,
Yeah.
as I understood correct. Right. Okay. Um, Look, Marvi, these, riots haven't come from nowhere.
Hmm.
There is a history to race riots. I think the first recorded race riot was in Wales in 1990. So since then, 1958, we have Nottingham Gate riots, like part of the history, anti-racist history in the country. And then, like we had, regular skirmishes between the far right and the anti-fascists on the streets of London from 70s onwards. So in the 70s, we had the National Front, and they used to come out and they used to terrorize communities, and communities, organized in self-defense. And
Mhm.
that is the beginning of Asian youth movements and also anti-fascist. In 80s, we have the English Defense League, um,
Mhm.
and in the 90s, we had British National Party of Nick Griffin.
Mhm.
So, so these far right parties have used incidents, like Southport, to stoke anti-minority, uh, violence.
Mhm.
And what is interesting about Southport riots is the fact,
Mhm.
and that has to be seen against the context of Brexit, which
Okay.
some people felt it actually kind of like gave rise to like anti-migrants, narrative, which was, peddled by the mainstream party, and in particular, UK independence. After that, the mainstream parties, in particular, conservatives have been having a field day against migrants, against immigrations, and with, particularly, Swala, Braverman in recent years. She staked her, in political career on stoking anti, migrant feeling and
Mhm.
anti-Muslim feeling. And then
Mhm.
comes Gaza. Gaza also gave kind of, free rein to racist, anti-Muslim feelings in particular. So, Southport, gave them an opportunity to, yes, feed on those long nurtured like anti-Muslim, feelings, anti-minority feelings, immigrant feelings. And one of the ingredient which is being, talked about, which added a lot to the whole situation is actually social media. Because, I mean, rumors were, spread about the South Port, that the guy who killed, 3 girls who were, like, I mean, going to Taylor Swift theme dance party,
Yeah.
that he was an, immigrant, he was a Muslim. I mean, he came on a boat because boat has become a symbol of the other in recent political, discourse in the British politics. And this whole, politics around the boat people has become the staple of, conservative political discourse in particular. So this rumor, spread, and the racists from all over the country, they descended on the town. They, vandalized everything. It was kind of, baying mob of white racists. And of course, the response of, political elite was very ambivalent. Prime Minister Keir Starmer at the beginning said these are, mindless thugs, and it is a
Yeah,
law
the
and order
right-wing
problem.
thuggery.
Yeah,
The right-wing thuggery, he termed
yeah.
it.
But I mean, they are not mindless. They have agenda. The far right in Europe, the far right in America, the far right in the UK, they have links. They are all of one mind. And then the Labour leader hesitated from calling it, racist, like violence, racist rights, which were targeting Muslim. And of course, the Asians, living there, they lived in anticipation of attacks every day. They boarded up their shops. And yes, I mean, they lived in fear of, themselves or something. Then what happened that although, yeah, because it was framed by the labor leader as a law and order problem,
Mm.
so police had to act, a bit more toughly. And as a result, they handed out very
Yeah.
sentences. And I mean, which was in the fitness of things. And then this, two-tier policing, like narrative emerged. Elon Musk, got in on the act. And I mean, he tweeted that, Keir Starmer was like two-tier, prime minister or something that effect. But,
Dr. Azad, may I
the
interrupt
people
you here?
active in anti-fascist, so like,
Yeah,
sorry?
the sound at your end is not, you're breaking up. Uh, yeah, can you try without the?
Okay, okay. This,
Yeah, I think the headphones are a bit of, yeah, if you could just try with
okay.
these.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was saying then Elon Musk got in on the act, and he, yes, I mean, tweeted to this effect that Keir Starmer was a two-tier, prime minister or something.
Mm.
But actually, and then police, discouraged community response, like asked people to stay home, and in a way which can be seen to be encouraging far right to come on street.
Mm.
But the counter mobilization in a way, when anti-racists or the whole communities or the anti-fascists, they came together and they mounted, a counter, like, demonstration, then things calmed down. And of course, the police thanked the people, and even, Prince Charles thanked the communities to come together to
Mm.
counter the far rights.
Mm.
I mean, while the earlier, narrative was
Yeah.
that, communities should stay indoors and it's,
Mm.
very dangerous. And had this course been pursued, Mavi, yes, the far right would be, still like ruling the streets with baying mobs
Yeah,
asking
that's
for
right. Yeah.
blood or Asians.
Yes.
So I think
So,
that is, yeah, I mean, that is the background.
mm. So
Yes.
given
And
your,
I mean, that really, brings us yes, to the current moment.
Yeah. So, given your experience with Jeremy Corbyn's leadership and his recent independent campaign, how do you assess the current leadership's response to the riots? Are there particular strategies or approaches from Corbyn's leadership that you believe could have been more effective in addressing the underlying causes of this unrest?
The response of the Labour Party would have been better. And I mean, there was one issues about some of the MPs have said like the riots should have been, characterized as racist, anti-Muslim, and Islamophobic from the very beginning. So that would have been better. Um, and so I think that was one thing. But I think the other thing, the way, Labour dealt with it as a purely law and order problems, lessons should be learned that this is not a law and order problem, though they did create law and order problem, but it has, ideology at its back, and and it's not. And I think some of the commentators have been saying um, that the way, Labour Party handles these riots
Mm.
will be very, crucial, because already Muslim communities are very distant from the Labour Party. I think this is important
Yes.
to be very, very conscious of Muslim, sensibilities, because, like, 5 independent Muslim candidates won at the region. And it is important for the Labour Party to re-engage with the Muslims. And it is not like good either for the Muslims to, set up their own party. Recently, when a question was asked to K.S. Starmer, do you have any, strategy to re-engage with the Muslim voters who did not vote for the Labour? And unfortunately, he didn't, give a very clear answer to these questions. And I think this is not Labour. Yes, good for the Labour Party either. And I think they should be very mindful of Muslim voters, turning away from Labour. This should make Labour think again, ideally. Yeah.
This should make Labour think again. Yes, the crux of the matter. And you've been deeply involved, Dr. Azad, in civil rights and racial discrimination
Yeah.
issues in the UK. How do you think these riots will impact the broader civil rights movement in the country? Do you foresee this moment leading to some meaningful change, or are there risks that it could entrench existing divides?
Look, despite the harsh rhetoric coming from the politicians over the, yes, last, in 15 years of the Conservative rule,
Hmm.
yes, the response of the communities and, the general public has been very, very encouraging. I think, communities have, sent out a message, and also general public, that immigrants are welcome, and anti-Muslim or anti-phobic, like anti, like Islamophobic, tropes can't be used, and like immigrants are an, asset to the country and other. So, these messages are good. I think the counter demonstration, the size of counter demonstrations, gives us a lot of heart that, things will improve. And at a time when far right is making huge gains elsewhere, I think such a message was much needed. Um, as for the gain in terms of, civil rights, um, I think this is a kind of advance, um, but I think constant, vigilance is needed, because, like, Conservative Party, particular the right wing of the Conservative Party, and I has particularly, stoked culture war around, woke culture, and this whole, Black Lives Matter. I mean, they have always, spoken, disparagingly of all those, movements.
Mm.
Um, and so it is really, narrative around the rights, around um,
Social justice,
uh,
equality.
yes, social justice, peace, more investment in the communities. One of the narrative which is being spun that these, rights are the outcome of underinvestments and these are, grievances of, white working class.
Mm.
Look at the people who were, targeted. They were the Muslims, working class as well. And they are as much, victims of underinvestment, as much, victims of housing crisis, as much, victims of unemployment, as
And
are the
maybe more.
whites.
And maybe more.
Yeah, yeah, maybe more. And these are, studies in America and also in the UK
Mm.
that, Muslims are more like, represented or, discriminated in housing, in health. Yes, in prisons, they are overrepresented. And they have, their own issues. But, despite that, they remain, the British, they were born there. And at the South Port, the narrative was that the guy was not, British. Who did? He was Muslim. He came on a boat while he was, British, born in Wales. So even
And he
people
was
who are
not Muslim,
born
I
in
believe.
Wales, yeah, yeah. So they are not, accepted as British. So this fact like came to light a bit later, and it was, released by court that they should put this information out in the public to allay, mm, the rights and also to counter any, misinformation
Okay.
about the identity of the
Yeah,
perpetrator.
that's right. So looking forward
Mm.
from here, I mean, you said more engagement with Muslims by Labour Party. That's one. But what other steps do you believe are necessary to heal the deep fractures in British society that these riots have exposed? How can policymakers and community leaders work together to prevent such incidents from recurring in the future?
So I think one of the thing is that, unfortunately, the far right, like, rhetoric around immigration,
Hmm.
uh, around communities has been absorbed by the mainstream parties. Um, and yes, that doesn't give much hope for future because if the mainstream parties have adopted those positions,
Hmm.
then it is very hard to like de-racialize, the politics.
Hmm.
But the fact that, communities have, come together and these, counter demonstrations have been of, big size. So this gives, much, broader hope. And the other thing is, cost of living crisis has been a real thing.
Hmm.
And, so far, Labour Party has not outlined any big plan for major, like, public spending.
My last question would be, Dr. Azad, from an international standpoint, how do you think these riots and the UK's handling of them are being perceived globally? What implications might this have for the UK's reputation and its relations with other nations of the world?
In a way, I would again say, community mobilization helped a lot.
Hmm.
In terms of, salvaging British reputation. Internationally, although the far right is like, very internationally networked, and they inspire each other. So I think that is international dimension of it. But
I think the broader response against the far right would be like international, solidarity between, progressive forces. Okay, promoting, progressive politics in their countries. And of course, linking uh, bridges between, progressive and, in socialist, in politics, and also educating, people about the politics of the far right, also managing like online, misinformation and, other things. These things can help to counter the threat of, in far right internationally as well. But also, domestically. And also, politicians should, desist from like using language which can contribute to, tensions between community for their, short-term political gains. And I think it has to happen at international level in terms of, solidarity at, community level, like investment, in bringing, in communities together, and also educations about the far right. But, Sarah Khan wrote an article in The Guardian yesterday. She did 2 reviews on, extremism. And where she argued that, in both types of extremism, should be dealt, far right and also Islamic extremism. So I think these things are important going forward, and they should be taken on board by politicians, by writers, by journalists, and by, community leaders. And also, there was some, touching scene during the riots where one imam, he went to join, a small group of far rights who were at the other end of, the demonstration. And he, embraced them and others. So, such initiatives help a lot in, cooling
Yes,
community tensions and,
that's right.
these things.
And we're glad that it has happened in UK already and
Yeah.
things are dying down. So thank you very much, Dr. Arif Azad. We'll have to leave it.
Thank you very much for having me on the program. It's, much appreciate. And yes, sorry for the, poor quality of the connections.
I know that's
I
understandable.
hope it will.
Yeah, it
I
will.
hope it will work out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.